This is your teacher confessional. These are real teachers, the stories are real. You're gonna laugh with Tedisco and Neil.
E.
They say theme music shouldn't be too long, so this is the end of our unprofessional song. In our pre conference, me and Mr. English here, Tedisco, we're discussing how you would teach teaching, and having experienced it as teachers being taught how to teach. I said, it's like teaching someone basketball. It's like you can show them a basketball and teach them, like, this is where the foul line is, and these are the rules,
right.
and these are all the kind of things. But that is completely
then you go
different
out on the court.
being on the court, and, like, someone's trying to steal the ball from you.
Exactly.
And all these things, like, you have these plans, and now, like, it doesn't go the way, like, you wanted
You're
to
not thinking
experience.
foul line is there.
So how do you...
Right.
So how do you teach teachers?
Yeah.
Right.
How do you teach teaching?
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you this, that there is a component that is necessary in any teacher ed program, and that's like actual, I think what you guys are talking about with the basketball analogy, right, is you have to get out in the classrooms, whether that be for student teaching or what we call at where I work, clinicals, right? Clinicals, some type of practical experience, because you're right, you can teach theory all day.
Right.
Yeah.
This is
and they do.
And we do, right? We do all day. Right. But it's not until you actually get out there and do it where you're like, I had no idea. Right. So our students often come back from that experience and they say, I learned so much in these 2 weeks than I have this whole semester.
Right. I learned more my first year teaching than all of my college experience.
Right? I mean, and I think teaching is one of those pieces, and probably many professions, but I think specifically teaching, you got to get out there and do it.
Right.
I don't care how many classroom management courses. You could take 6 classroom, because they're always asking them, we want more classroom management courses. I'm like, we could give you 10. Right. But it would make no bit of difference because
you're not managing a classroom in those classes.
There you go. And you have a totally different group of students the next year or this year, right? And so you're going to be learning like who you are as a classroom manager. So so the goal, I think, one is to get them out there in the schools. Right. Actually doing this stuff, right, and engaging with students. But in the classroom, while we do have theory, a lot of what I do is modeling, right, for them. So typically I am the teacher, and then they are the students, the elementary school students that I teach, that they will be teaching. And so we'll go through lessons that way so that they can see at least and kind of live vicariously through, one, themselves as students, and then me as a teacher. Right. And then we debrief that, right? And we say, what did we see? What do we see me doing? What could I have done better? Right. And what did you experience cognitively as a student?
Getting sort of metacognitive.
So I think that's important. And there are some courses that lend themselves to that better. I teach science, how to teach science. Right. So that lends itself beautifully, I think, to modeling experiments, activities, and whatnot.
As opposed to teaching grown-ups how to read when they already know how to read.
When they already know how to read, right? Or how do you educational psychology, how do you then make that into a model piece, right, within the, does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
And so I think I'm really blessed to kind of have this space in this science place, right, where I'm teaching. So I think modeling is really important in how to teach teachers, and the theory, of course, is needed. But but I will say this. Let me. I'm a big proponent of what we know in education is inquiry-based instruction. Okay. Right. Student-centered. Right. And there are different levels of inquiry-based instruction. Right. But I really gear on guided. Right. Inquiry-based. Right. And so what I get them to do is I don't teach them theory first. Right. I give them an experience that we can all have a common ground, and then we pull theory out of that experience. Right. Does that make sense?
So you're pulling education theory out of the education experience.
Right. So we'll model a lesson, and then we'll say, what did you, an intentional lesson, right, that I know is going to somehow bring this topic or this idea, this concept or theory up, right? What did we see here? And then they'll say, we noticed that you were asking questions. Well, what kind of questions was I asking, right? At the beginning, well, you were asking more like what questions and who questions, right? And well, as we move forward, what kind of questions? And you start asking us to like explain and justify and compare. Right. We're talking the different taxonomies of questions here, right? So then we place that word, but we've experienced it. So now they have something to like hook onto it. Yes. I think that's also important, right? Because I think they remember it.
And no taxonomy without representatonomy. Just so you know.
Just so you know.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
You're disappointed. You're disappointed.
Disappointed you didn't come up with it.
Tedisco has his face in his hands right now.
I don't have enough hands to put my face in.
I don't have enough.
So something now. So we've been relatively like talking about professionally stuff, but now we want to have some more fun stuff.
Unprofessional stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we want to know is tell us about an experiment that's gone wrong, either or some kind of lab where it went sideways, whether you were teaching or whether you were teaching teachers. And this was the plan, and then all of a sudden somebody's face was on fire, or anything that was amuse us.
Because running labs, like the level of preparation, but also like the risk there,
right?
It's much higher than I'll handle. Like
true, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
In my class, their pencils could break. That's about as
they could write a naughty word. They could write a naughty word.
They could write a naughty word on a desk, on a chair, on somebody else's.
And they do.
And they do.
Yes.
Yes. It would it had to be the high school when I was teaching biology.
Okay.
And we were doing a yeast lab. Carbon dioxide.
Okay.
Those are words.
Yes.
A yeast lab, and so I had forgotten to get the hydrogen peroxide. So you use hydrogen peroxide, you use yeast, right? And you mix the two.
And then what happens?
And they give off oxygen. Okay.
Okay. And how do you know that? Does it blow up like a balloon or something, or you light on
it does
fire?
give off like bubbles, but then you take a little splint and you can light it and then blow out the fire, and it still has embers, and then put it in there, and it lights back up.
Nice.
Right, it lights back up. So it's really cool.
There's so much oxygen.
There's so much oxygen being given off.
It feeds the fire.
It feeds the fire. There we go. See, science. High school mealy science teacher. Way to go.
Thank you.
You got that. Well, I had forgotten to get the hydrogen peroxide from the store, right? Because you can get that from,
CVS.
Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, whatever.
Yes.
And so
all of them sponsoring this podcast now. Get your hydrogen peroxide at the CVS. They've got the best hydrogen peroxide.
We name dropped it. That's cut. So
it's an unprofessional development when you buy the hydrogen peroxide at CVS. Just to see what happens.
Get a crooked look from Linda behind the counter.
So I came in.
Tell them you'll be using it for fire. They'll love it.
Tell them you love Breaking Bad.
There you go. Exactly.
There we go.
Right? There you go. So I went and got some out of the chemical storage closet. Hydrogen peroxide.
Right.
All in brown bottles.
Chemicals.
Good place to store chemicals. Hydrogen peroxide. And hydrogen peroxide in the normal basis, it's harmless.
Right.
I mean, harmless.
Yeah. I gave it to my dog to make her throw up a sock one time.
A sock?
Yeah, she swallowed a
Your
sock.
dog eats everything.
Yes.
Your dog will eat anything.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, me too.
Yeah.
But have you ever been given hydrogen peroxide
to throw up a sock?
Throw up a sock.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not that I remember.
Not right, exactly.
Yes.
So I went and got it, and we were doing
Why did I video that? I mean, forget podcasts. I mean, YouTube famous with the dog.
There we go.
Sock.
That would have been a great YouTube moment.
The story, Mealy.
Back to the story. Sorry.
We're being bad listeners. We're bad students.
Go ahead.
It happens.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So I bring it, and we're doing the lab, right? And they are, of course, I don't have them wearing gloves, right? Because hydrogen peroxide.
It's skin safe. Yeah.
It's skin safe.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, my students start noticing there are white spots on their fingers.
Nice.
And so they're like, Professor Science, like, what? At that time, I was Mr. Science.
Yeah.
I hadn't actually gotten the PhD. Yes, Mr. Science, right? Why are our hands turning white, right?
It's never a good question.
Never a good question.
It's not you're gaining superpowers. That's definitely not.
No, this is not a
Did
Spider-Man
you make a
moment.
Michael Jackson reference at that time?
Moment. I didn't, but one of my kids might have.
Nice.
Why not, right?
Right.
And so all the kids are experiencing this. I'm like, what's happening? Also, at the same time, because when you use hydrogen peroxide bought from the store, you can actually tell a difference in, like, because they're crushing up yeast versus, like, so powdered yeast versus regular granular yeast, right?
Okay.
And so you can actually tell the difference in the amount of oxygen being given off.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But today, in that lesson, things were going like gangbusters. I mean, the bubbles were coming out of the tube, and I was like, "What the heck is happening?" Like, it never happens like this. And so I'm really confused because, of course, the data they're getting, they're like, everything's the same, right? And I'm like, oh, this is terrible. So then, like, they're still like, Professor Science, our hands are starting to burn. They're starting to burn, and I'm like, what is going on? And so I I'm like, guys, you're fine. You're totally good. Like, it's hydrogen. There's nothing we're dealing with here, right?
Right.
Nothing
corrosive.
Professor
Nothing corrosive.
Is ignoring the data.
Ignoring the data.
30 hands that
The
are on
bubbles,
fire.
right? The oxygen being released, the 30 hands that are burning.
It's like a Dora the Explorer episode. It's like, oh, wait a second.
Light bulb. So then I look at the hydrogen peroxide I got out of the chemical storage closet. And I realized it is like 90%.
Nice.
90%.
As opposed to from CVS?
As opposed to like, I think it's like 2%. Yes, 2% hydrogen peroxide.
Yes.
And so
that means it's 48 times as strong or something like that.
Go, math.
Yes, there we go.
Okay, math connection.
Anyway.
So then I realize I
have endangered
I've endangered my kids. Yes. I've endangered my kids. I did not dilute this, right? Because I'm just thinking hydrogen peroxide. I was a new teacher.
Yeah. Everybody wash your hands for the next, till we leave, till the bell rings.
So that's what I said. I said,
put your hands in the baking soda and don't move.
Put your hands in that yeast, guys. Put your hands in that yeast. No. And so I had to tell them to wash your hands, right? But I didn't.
Don't touch your face.
I didn't tell them.
Don't touch your eye.
About the hydrogen peroxide. I just said, guys, sometimes, once I realized what was going on, sometimes this happens. Because let's be honest.
We don't want them going home.
We don't want mom. No, right? I was like, it'll be gone by the time you leave school today, right?
This is totally normal.
This is totally
the flight attendant.
Yes, the flight attendant, right?
Yeah, no, it normally bucks like that.
Exactly. This is just turbulence. It's just a little bit of turbulence. That's just a little, first degree burn. Right? That's all that is. Yeah.
Was there any fallout?
No fallout. No,
Nice.
I get no calls from parents.
Nice.
Good.
This is probably my department chair's first time, and she listens to this. First time hearing about that. I didn't tell a soul. I didn't tell a soul about that.
No.
Gotta get in front of those things. Bailey and I have these arguments all the time.
There we go. There we go.
So that's awesome because that leads to